pretty much the same way they had introduced it in Parliament the last winter session without discussion. Also, what wasn't quite different was the uproarious scene from the opposition. But this time around, what was different is if last year you had a semblance of a united opposition, today you saw it fraying at the edges.
जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ कहें, जो सदस्य इसके विरोध में ना कहें, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में.
September 17th, 2020, the farm laws get passed without discussion. And for 38 days later, the controversial reforms were repealed by Parliament without discussion. But much like its passage, its repealing too was in midst of protests and sloganeering.
जो सदस्य विरोध में ना कहें, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, मंत्री जी विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करें.
This is a reflection of the fact that the government is terrified of having this discussion. The government wants to hide. The government does not have the guts to stand up for its actions.
That was the stormy start to the winter session of the Parliament. While not much has changed in 1 year in Parliament, what has changed and deteriorated further is the facade of an opposition unity, now completely fraying at the edges this winter session. 10 a.m. Monday, the Congress held an opposition huddle, an attempt at a show of strength right ahead of the winter session of Parliament. However, the Trinamool Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party chose to give it a skip.
Trinamool Congress itself is trying to emerge as one of the most important opposition party, for which we have a National Working Committee meeting on 29th at 3 p.m. in Kolkata.
In Lok Sabha, we have been recognized as the largest opposition party, and in the Rajya Sabha, we have been recognized as the opposition party. So, leader of the opposition party belongs to the Congress party. It does not depend upon the whims and fancy of the TMC party.
The Parliament now also a battleground of opposition versus opposition. Outside, the TMC bleeding the Congress to bolster its ranks by occupying the space ceded by the grand old party. Inside the House, both standing against the government, but on separate turfs. The Congress and TMC held protests at the same venue, on the same issue, but separately.
कोई बाइकआउट कर रहे, शिवसेना नहीं जा रहे, शरद पवार नहीं, ये ऐसा नहीं है. देखो, हम एक इशू पे, मुद्दे पे यूनाइटेड है. अपने अपने राज्य में जो भी पॉलिटिक्स करते हैं, उनको छोड़े सोए.
The Congress chose to sugarcoat the snub, but it wasn't the TMC alone that deserted the Congress on day one of the winter session.
कांग्रेस ने आज विपक्षी दलों की मीटिंग बुलाई है, टीएमसी उसमें शामिल नहीं होगी?
नहीं, उसमें हम लोग नहीं जा रहे हैं.
If on day one the government faced heat on not holding a discussion on repealing the laws like the way it passed it, going ahead the opposition will need a strategy to corner the government during election season. But if day one is any indication enough, then it's a fragmented opposition and not a united one. Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, viewers, so the question that we asked this evening, can a fragmented opposition actually put the government on the mat on contentious issues that it would want to? Let's cut across to our panelists. I have Tom Vadakan, Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson. I have Gurdeep Sappal, spokesperson Congress. I have Bishwajit Deb, spokesperson TMC. I want to begin with Mr. Deb first. Mr. Deb, you didn't attend the all-opposition meet called at 10 a.m. by the Congress today. Are you going to attend it tomorrow, where you are going to be looking at coming all of you together, to revoke the suspension of the 12 MPs?
You see, first of all, Preeti, we must understand one particular aspect, that the Parliament is not being disrupted by the opposition. The Parliament is not being able to run due to the inefficiency of the government. The government wants to bulldoze each and every bill which has been a concern for the opposition. They have bulldozed the farm law, They have done the Pegasus. They didn't want to discuss with the Pegasus issue. They have just bulldozed the farm law within 8 minutes. And after that, what has happened, we could see that regarding Pegasus, they have got a good reply from the Supreme Court. And regarding the farm law, they were compelled to withdraw that. And still now, they are not ready to discuss any bills.
Okay.
They are not ready to send the bills for scrutiny before the standing committee.
The bills being repealed, the opposition can hardly...
Sir, now out of the 10 bills...
Sir, I just want to come in for a second and you complete.
Even the repeal...
Sir, the opposition can hardly take credit for the government repealing the three farm laws.
Give me 1 minute.
The repealing belongs to the farmers. So that's not the opposition's doing.
1 minute, please.
Please, sir, go ahead.
The repealing belongs to the farmers. 100% the repealing belongs to the farmers. But it was the opposition who stood behind the farmers. It was the Trinamool Congress from day one which protested against this particular farm law, which protested inside the parliament and outside the parliament. It was Mamata Banerjee who had sent the parliamentary team to assist the farmers, to support the farmers, who raised all the concern before the parliament and outside the house also. And therefore, the All India Trinamool Congress was definitely a party to it, and definitely they supported the cause of the farmers both inside and outside the house. But unfortunately, the government thinks that parliament is Man Ki Baat. Parliament is not Man Ki Baat. The government should understand, Mr. Prime Minister should understand that the parliament is not Man Ki Baat. It is a place for discussion. You have just violated the natural justice. You have suspended the member of parliaments without giving an opportunity of hearing. This is just denial.
Sir, I will come back now because you made your point. I will come back and ask you the same. Sir, please hear the question out, which I began with. And the question I ask you again, yes, you spoke out against the government. Yes, you took the government on for passing the cancellation or repealing of the three farm laws without a discussion. But you did it on a different platform as other political opposition parties. Both of you, the Congress and other parties, protested while you protested separately on the same issue. I'm asking you, tomorrow when there is an all-party meet has now been called, where the Congress has called it, will you be attending it, which discusses the revoking of suspension of 12 MPs? And why didn't you attend the meet today? Shouldn't the opposition have a cohesive strategy?
You see, inside the floor of the house, there is always a coordination. But to tell you frankly, that Congress is not an ally of Trinamool Congress. So therefore, we will work with all the opposition party inside the house to protest against the autocratic government, the way the government is trying to function, the way the parliament has been denied.
Will you attend the meeting or not, sir? Tomorrow everyone's quite interested in knowing.
Member of parliaments.
Mr. Dev, will you attend the meeting in the morning with other opposition parties?
The way the government is trying to avoid the parliament, the way the government is not giving an opportunity to the opposition,
Sir, is the TMC going to go in the morning at 10 a.m.? Sir, I'll ask you a third time while I bring in Mr. Sappal as well. Will the TMC tomorrow at 10 a.m. sit with the Congress to discuss the strategy to revoke the suspension of 12 MPs? Sir, I can hear you, but please hear my question also.
I will take 30 seconds.
No, sir. No. I need to go to the other panelists, but you please answer my question.
Not even one bill is being discussed. Most of the bills are
Sir, I'm asking you a question. Are you answering my question?
Standing committee for scrutiny.
Mr. Deb, I have quite patiently heard you, sir. I have been asking you a question. Okay, I want to cut across to Gurdeep Sappal. Mr. Sappal, I want to come to you, and the question I want to ask you now is, outside the House, your leader of opposition, Mr. Chaudhary, very openly says that the TMC is the team B of the BJP. How do you expect cohesiveness inside?
Preeti, first of all, I think the parliament session is convened to fix the accountability of the government, not of the opposition.
True.
That's the way our system works, first of all. And today the bigger issue is how the government ramroded the repeal bills without any discussion, despite Prime Minister in the morning inviting everybody for discussion, and they did not discuss in either of the houses. And even when Mr. Kharge was permitted to speak, Within 2 minutes, when there was no disruption, it was a peaceful house. Suddenly his camera was off, his mic was off, and in next 2 minutes the bill was cleared. So this is what we should be discussing today. Nevertheless, you have asked me a question.
Yes, sir.
First of all, Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge is not the leader of Congress, just a leader of Congress. He is on a constitutional position. He is the leader of the entire opposition. The constitution says that LOP, leader of opposition, he represents every single opposition party. And it is in that capacity, not as a Congress leader. He convenes meetings every day in his chamber. In last session also, there were several times when sometimes Trinamool came, sometimes it didn't come, sometimes SP came, sometimes didn't come, sometimes BSP came, sometimes didn't come. Sometimes it is out of compulsion, sometimes it is out of their political calculation. But so far as today is concerned, in morning, Trinamool officially had communicated that they had this National Council meeting in Calcutta, and that is why they were not able to attend today's meeting. And I think on the floor of the House, I'll agree with Mr. Vishwajit Dev, on the floor of the House, every opposition party is united. Even today, when the suspensions happened, 6 MPs are from Congress, 2 one from CPI, 1 from CPM. So it's not about one party. And Mr. Kharge, when he speaks, he represents all these parties and many others who are fighting the tyranny of this government. This is the situation today.
All right, but okay, Mr. Sappal, as much as I do agree with you, the issue is the government passing the bill without any discussion. But having said that, for those who support the opposition in its stand, they will be looking at a cohesive strategy which the opposition can take the government on. What many did see today was a fragmented opposition. So therefore, I'll ask you the question again, and I will take the question of a bill being cleared without a discussion to Mr. Wadekar. But I'll ask you that question again, sir, and thank you for acknowledging the question, which is Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, who is from your party, who is the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, going and saying very clearly that TMC is the team B of the BJP at the back of all the defections that have taken place to the TMC from your party.
Let us understand the difference between two houses. Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary is the leader of Congress in Lok Sabha. He is not the official LOP. Mr. Kharge is official LOP. As far as Congress party and Trinamool are concerned, both contested elections against each other in Bengal. They will be contesting elections against each other in many other states. We, as Mr. Dev said, we are not the ally of Trinamool outside the parliament, but in the parliament. The issue is about LOP, leader of opposition, who is Mr. Kharge. And Mr. Kharge reaches out to Trinamool Congress. Trinamool Congress also acknowledges his position. And that is what matters today. And I agree with you that today people of India want to see a united fight against this tyranny of BJP. And even today, tomorrow you'll see it united in the House. Because today what BJP did, it suspended the 12 MPs against the rule. It is simply against the rules. They have not even read the rule.
Okay, sir, we'll see what tomorrow brings. We'll see what tomorrow brings, and I would hope that you would convey the, what you said about Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary to Mr. Chaudhary, because we just heard something entirely different from him, where he seems to believe he's the leader of the opposition. But having said
no. I think the rule position is very clear. He is the leader of Congress party in Lok Sabha.
Okay, sir. Fine,
as leader of Congress party, he expresses the position of Congress party. And Congress is not an ally of TMC outside parliament.
Yeah. All right, sir. Okay, I want to cut across right now to Tom Wadekar. Appreciate the patience, sir. The moot point is still, Mr. Wadekar, that exactly the same way these bills were introduced a little more than a year ago, exactly the same way they were taken back, without discussion. And then at the cost of suspending 12 MPs from the opposition.
Well, the interesting part is this is just pure hearsay that it was not discussed in the House. Mr. Sappal is also knowledgeable on the records of the House of discussions that were held. It is true that it did not go to the standing committee, but discussions were held. Okay, number one. Number two, they all wanted this bill to be removed. And when they wanted it, finally the Prime Minister, the head of the state, came out and said openly, yes, we are withdrawing it. Unlike a comparative assessment you have in 1988, Rajiv Gandhi on the defamation bill, even the cabinet did not know what was the issue that was going to be done in the cabinet. And this was in connection with Bofors also, when he had the defamation bill removed. Now, the point here is they do not learn a lesson from history. And then you had the young man, This is September 28, 2013. The young leader, Rahul Gandhi, tearing the ordinance that of his own government, and the Prime Minister was travelling. Now, these are the niceties that they have been following, and they are the believers in constitutional framework of things. I like the very delicate method of Mr. Sappal saying, well, he's the LOP, he represents the entire parliament. And now there was the latest news about Sangma from Meghalaya, who said what he said on public record about the Congress and TMC's relationship. So be what it may, I do not want to say that they live separately. They can unite for all we care. But we believe in the double engine action and seeing that we deliver what we promise. And that's what we have been doing. We have promised, the Prime Minister 10 days back promised that the bills will be withdrawn. It was done as a speed.
Priti, I would like to respond.
Sir, I'll come to you. I'll come to you, Mr. Sappal. But Mr. Vadakan.
But please don't run out of time.
But Mr. Vadakan, why not open the floor for discussion? You didn't do it when you cleared it through ordinance. You didn't do it this time around.
Priti, sloganeering may not be ruckus in some of their vocabulary, When everybody shouts and creates slogans and creates ruckus in the house, you expect a decent, balanced debate.
You've made your point, sir. Too much din in the house. Mr. Sappal, you wanted to come in for a rebuttal. Go ahead.
Let me react to all 3 points. Mr. Vadakan was then in Congress party, and he conveniently forgets that defamation bill was a bill. It was not an act. It was not passed by Parliament. It was taken back before it was passed by Parliament. So these two are totally different scenarios. Number 2, I think you forget, and Rahul Gandhi answered it very effectively today, that if Prime Minister's Man Ki Baat is to be considered by Parliament as a rubber stamp, when he wants ordinance to be passed, pass it without discussion. When he wants bills to be withdrawn, withdraw it without discussion. Then why are you having this Parliament? Why this facade of democracy? You do away with democracy then. Parliament is precisely for this reason that bills must be debated. And today in meeting, the government very blatantly said repeal bills are not debated. And we provided them a list of at least 17 bills in last few years.
All right. Can I just get a quick comment? Mr. Dev wanted to make a point.
Please, last point.
Yes, sir, make your point.
Last point. Sloganeering may not be ruckus. But in BJP's own view, when it was in opposition, it was the parliamentary tool for democracy. You forget what Mrs. Sushma Swaraj and what Arun Jaitley ji said about ruckus? They said it's a valid parliamentary tool.
Okay, sir, made your point. Sir, you've made your point. Yes, Mr. Dev, quickly make your point. Make your point, sir. 10 seconds. Make your point.
Let me come in. Now the government should understand that they are butchering the democracy each and every day. Democracy is being butchered by this particular government each and every day, inside the house and outside the house. Outside you protest, you are booked under UAP for sedition.
All right, gentlemen.
And inside you protest, you are thrown.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry to get that hard cut going. That's all the time that we have for. Thank you for all 3 of you for joining us. We're going to continue the debate because the action shifts to tomorrow as well as what goes down on day 2 of the Parliament. The opposition is meeting at 10 a.m. Will the TMC attend? Will it be a fragmented opposition? Will they come in together to press for revoking of the 12 MPs who were suspended today? A quick break. Up next is Rahul Kamal.
When coronavirus sent cities and countries into lockdowns, the abrupt transition was a joyride for our nature. The Himalayas became visible from the Punjab plains. Blue skies emerged from New Delhi's smog, and 30 lakes and rivers sparkled once again. The joy